Michelle from Birdcage & Thread here with a tutorial for a zipper cover for a parmesan cheese container. Yes, you heard that right, but bear with me. Once you've finished eating the cheese, wash the container thoroughly and leave it to dry to remove any lingering odour. Then you can transform it into a pencil case or sewing tool supply case. A hard case like this is particularly useful for transporting sharp objects such as scissors. To make sure that your container will fit this project, the one I'm using is 6 inches high with a circumference of approximately 9¼ inches. So be sure to carry your measuring tape next time you're in the grocery store. Seriously though, this would even be great to hold a wet cloth should you need to keep one with you throughout the day. If you don't have a container this size, don't worry as the bag can be used without the container. I've also included a worksheet to help you with the math, and you can also use it should you want to make one in a different size. I'll put a link in the description box below where you can download this one. If you're not inclined to do the math, I'm launching a new collection of patterns called the Compact Collection, which are condensed style patterns that go along with my videos. This is the first in the collection, and this particular pattern is called the Rolling. These patterns are available for only a couple of dollars each, so if you'd rather have pattern pieces and measurements, as well as written instructions with pictures, they're a fantastic buy. As they're bargain priced, they'll only be available on Craftsy. So if you like this video and you'd like to buy the pattern, I'll put a link in the description box below where you can purchase the Rolling. So grab your supplies and let's get sewing. To make the zipper bottle cover, begin by measuring the circumference and height of your object. Use the downloadable worksheet to note your measurements. I'll put a link in the description box below to download the worksheet. So this is just under 9¼ inches, so I'm going to round it up to 9¼ and I've noted that here under the circumference. Then you measure the height, which this is 6 inches, so I've noted 6 inches under the height. Then following the worksheet, fill the rest of the worksheet out to work out what size to cut the outer fabric, lining and interfacing. The only piece that's not included on the worksheet is the handle. You can choose whatever handle you like, but the one I'm doing in the video is a handle on the lid. I use the 4 times the width method, and the length of the handle is 1 inch longer than the circle diameter. So I cut the handle 4 inches wide by 5 inches long, which gives me a handle of 1 inch wide by 5 inches long. So you should have the following pieces cut. From the outer fabric, you'll have 1 rectangle that will form the main body of the bag, and 2 circles for the base and lid. These 3 pieces have batting fused to them. Also from the outer fabric is a small hinge piece which I've fused woven interfacing to. This small piece does not need batting, just woven interfacing. The last piece cut from the outer fabric is the handle. From the lining fabric, you'll need 1 rectangle that will form the main body of the bag, and 2 circles for the base and lid, and I've chosen not to interface these pieces. The last piece of lining you'll need is the small hinge piece, which again has woven interfacing fused to the back of it. Now we're going to cut the zipper to length. In this case, I prefer the following method to make sewing the hinge to the zipper easier. So mark the length of your zipper required, leaving extra zipper teeth either side of the markings. So you can see I have a mark here with extra zipper teeth to the other side, and same on this end, the mark is here with the extra zipper teeth. So firstly close the zipper and cut the zipper pull off at the first mark. I'm going to cut the metal zipper stop off because we're going to open out the opposite end. So you can see I still have the mark here. Then you're going to open out the zipper like that. Then take your zipper pull that you cut off and you're going to reattach the zipper pull to this end. And place the zipper pull in or about the middle. Then you can trim the zipper to your other mark. So now you have a zipper that has both ends closed with the zipper pull in the middle. Now we're going to slice each of the outer and lining fabrics to create a top section and a bottom section of the zippered bag. So firstly I'm going to measure down where I'd like the zipper. So in this case, I'd like the zipper right where the lid ends here, which is 1 inch. Then to that measurement, you're going to add 2 seam allowances. So that gives me 1.5 inches. So I'm going to, from this width edge here, or parallel to this width edge here, you're going to measure down the measurement plus 2 seam allowances. In my case, it's 1.5 inches. So I'm going to slice both of those fabrics at that point, and in your worksheet that's explained down the bottom here. So now you should have a top and a bottom of the outer and a top and a bottom of the lining. So you can place the tops aside for now, and we're going to work on the bottom pieces. So take the outer piece and fold it in half, right sides together along the width. Then sew a seam down this edge here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to repeat the same with the lining. So again, fold in half, right sides together along the width. Just as you did with the outer, you're going to sew a seam down this edge here, but instead you're going to leave a gap for turning. In my case, I'll probably leave about 3 or 4 inches. Once you have the side seam sewn to both the outer and the lining, and you've left a gap in the lining for turning, we're going to sew the circular piece to the cylinder piece. Just pay attention if you have directional fabric that you're placing the circle onto the bottom of the design, not the top. So you're going to clip into this bottom here about every 3/8 of an inch, and your clips are going to be less than a 1/4 inch long. Then you're going to pin or wonder clip the circle to the cylinder. You can use the 1/4 point, so mark the 1/4 of the circle and of the cylinder if you like, but I'm just going to go ahead and pin it to the base. Then using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to sew around the circle, making sure the cylinder is facing up and the circle piece is on the bed of your machine as you sew. Then you're going to repeat the same with the lining cylinder and the circle. Now that you have the outer and the lining sewn, you can put it aside for now. Next we're going to work on the hinge and the zipper. So take the zipper and the 2 hinge pieces. So place the outer piece right side down against the right side of the zipper, lining up the short ends. Then you're going to flip the zipper over and you're going to place the lining fabric over the top of the zipper. So you have the outer facing the right side of the zipper and the lining facing the wrong side of the zipper. Then using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to sew along this short edge here. To make sewing the hinge easier, you can sew one side of the outer and lining to the zip, then sew the outer to the other end of the zip, making sure there's no kinks or twists. Then we're going to sew the lining to this side of the zip. So to make that easier, you're going to open up the zip all the way, then pull the zipper teeth apart like that. Then you're going to bring the lining up through the middle of the zipper teeth to meet the other side. You're going to line up the short raw edge with the end of the zipper. Then using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or in my case here just going over the previous stitching, you can stitch the lining to the zipper. Now that you have the outer and lining hinge piece sewn to the zipper, I'm going to turn it right side out. So push the zipper through to one side. Then turn the fabric pieces right side out. And now you have a fabric loop or a zipper loop with fabric joining the two ends. You can, if you like, top stitch along each of the seam lines here. Now you have the outer and the lining sewn. Leave the outer so that the wrong side's facing out, but take the lining and turn it right side out. Then also take the zipper ring and make sure that the zipper pull is on the outside. Then we're going to sandwich all this together. So take the outer with the seam facing you and line up the center of this fabric section here against that seam line there. Then you're going to pin or wonder clip the zipper to the outer. Next, you're going to place the lining inside the outer like that, and again lining up the seam of the lining with the seam of the outer. Then using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to sew along this edge here. If you have a free arm that this fits over, you can sew it from this side. However, if you don't have a free arm, you can place the outer on the bed of your machine and sew it from the inside there. If you need to pull the zipper pull out the way, you can get to it through the opening in the lining. Now that this top seam is sewn, we're going to turn the bag right side out. Then you can hand or machine stitch that gap closed in the lining and push the lining down in the outer and take it to your ironing board and press both the outer and the lining seam, and you can top stitch along the outer if you wish. The next thing we're going to do is make the handle. So I have the length of my handle here and the width. So what you're going to do is fold it in half, wrong sides together. So again, this is your length. Open it back out, then fold those raw edges into that center crease. Then refold the center crease and top stitch along both sides of the handle. Once you've done that, you're going to take your outer circle, which is the lid. You're going to place it. You can find the center by folding it in half, or you can just eyeball it. But you're going to place one short edge of the handle on one side, then pull the handle back and baste to the other edge, or the opposite edge to there. Once you've basted the handle to the lid, you're going to take the smaller rectangle, which is the top section of the bag, fold it in half, right sides together so that the short ends meet. Then using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to stitch down that short end. Then you're going to clip around the raw edge, making sure if you have directional fabric that the direction or where you're clipping is at the top of your design. Now that you have the handle basted to the circular lid and you have this rectangle sewn at the short end there and this raw edge clipped, we're going to attach this top section to the lid. So open out that seam and place the seam either at this point or at this point on the lid. You don't want the seam at the handle section. So I'm going to put it here and we're going to start clipping this cylinder to the circle. Just as you did before, you're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and stitch around the circle there. Now you have the outer lid sewn. I'll turn it right side out so you can see. So now it's starting to take shape and look like a lid. We're going to do the same thing but with the lining, but we're going to do it slightly different than the outer. So take the long rectangle of your lining and place it wrong side up on your ironing board. Then you're going to fold up along this long edge. You're going to fold up at least a 1/4 inch. I'm folding up 1/2 inch because my interfacing is fairly hefty. I've got a fairly thick batting, so it's going to take up, the batting's taking up more room, which I need to make the lining a little smaller. So again, I've folded up 1/2 inch and pressed. Then you're going to open it out and place right sides together, bringing these short ends together. And keeping this unfolded, you're going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance and stitch a seam down that short end. Then you're going to attach this cylinder to the circle, but make sure when you clip along the raw edge that you're clipping along the edge that is unfolded, not the folded edge. So along here, clip all around, then you're going to attach the cylinder to the lining circle piece. Now we're going to sew the outer lid to the main bag. So turn your main bag so that the lining is facing out. And then undo the zipper all the way. Now we're going to turn the lid so that it's facing right side out as well. And we're going to pin the lid to the other side of the zipper. But you're going to want to line up the seam allowance there of the lid with this back section of the zipper here, or the fabric section there. And because of the bulk being on the inside, you're going to have to stretch the zipper slightly. So pull on the zipper slightly, but don't pull on the lid fabric. You're going to just have to ease the zipper around. Then, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and your zipper foot, you're going to sew from the inside. So you're going to be having the zipper on the bed of your machine with the zipper foot on the top here, and you're going to sew around. Next, we're going to place the lining inside the lid. So you're going to line up the seam allowance here, or the seam here, with this back fabric section. The best way to do it is to turn the lid so that the wrong side is facing out, making sure that the zipper tape is facing towards this seam here. Then you're going to take your lining piece and turn it right side out. Again, lining up that seam with the back, you're going to place wrong sides together. And you're going to line up the fold of that lining with the stitch line on the zipper. I'm just going to hold it with wonder clips for now, but you've got a couple of options to temporarily hold the lining to the outer. You can either glue baste or you can hand baste with needle and thread. So now I would take my glue and just do little bit by little bit, taking off the clips as you go, and then replace the clips while the glue dries. Or you can hand baste with needle and thread. Once you've done that, either the glue's dry or you've hand basted, you're going to top stitch on the outside along that seam there, and that will secure the lining in place.